Good evening. It is 91 degrees in the Rose City on this 15th day of May. And as we continue to endure heat that feels more like midsummer, a change is underway in the form of higher humidity and strong thunderstorms firing up over the Cascades. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Brittany Folkers. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino with the latest on where those storms are at right now and where they're headed, Matt.
Hey, Brittany, yeah, it's interesting. They developed over the Cascades first, as they so typically do, but we're getting some movement off the Cascades towards the western valleys. I'll show you that in a minute. Here's our first lightning strike picture. This from Swoosh McDuck off of Twitter, out to the east of Sandy from the Johns Root viewpoint there. There's Mount Hood. There's the lightning bolt, and there have been a lot of lightning strikes out there. I'll show you that as well. This is from downtown Portland looking east, a fairly dark and stormy sky out to the east of Mount Tabor there and also to the north. So showers, yes. Haven't had any lightning strikes in the valley yet, but it's still early. The day is not over, and it's certainly a possibility. Up in the Cascades, getting some pretty good rainfall here. This is from one of our two cameras at Timberline Lodge in the beautiful Mount Hood National Forest. You're looking southeast, and there's some solid rain there. I saw some rainfall amounts of about 2/3 of an inch east of here out over the Ochoco Mountains. So these storms have the potential to drop a lot of rain in a short period of time because they're moving really slowly, which means they could just keep dumping and dumping over the same area. Now watch on Doppler radar. See the storms over southwest Washington? They're all moving from northeast to southwest. So we already have some of the northern reaches of Clark County here up towards Battleground. We're getting lightning very close by there. In Portland, not yet, but out by Sandy, there are some storms. Out by Troutdale, there's some storms in the gorge here. So again, we have to keep an eye on these. The movement is really slow. The ones over the Oregon Cascades moving a little bit more west to east, but up over southwest Washington, as I showed you, they're moving northeast to southwest. So we've got the potential to have some drift down over the valleys later on tonight or develop over us. And for that reason, there's a flood watch up, and the same time and same place, there's a heat advisory. They overlap up until 8 o'clock, and then the heat advisory ends. The flood watch goes until 10 o'clock because of that potential for heavy rain from these storms. So they're developing right now pretty much anywhere or everywhere. Anywhere really over the state they can happen, even the coast range. Strongest storms will be over and near the Cascades, though, as usual. Staying very warm through the week, but there is a cool down coming our way as we go towards the end of the week. We'll have more on that later, guys.
Yeah, a lot to keep an eye on right now. Thanks, Matt.
And okay, get this. Scientists say that the deep snowpack and then warm temperatures led to this massive landslide on the only road to Mount St. Helens. Check out the video from the air today of the scope of this slide. Wow. This is on State Route 405 near the Johnston Ridge Observatory, which was supposed to open to the public today.
And that reopening instead turned to rescues, with the slide taking out a bridge and a section of the Spirit Lake Highway there in the Coldwater Lake area. That is not far from the ridge, which meant a dozen or so folks were stuck on the observatory side overnight.
Daisy Caballero is at the mountain with the story and how they got out.
State Route 504 near Coldwater Lake is closed both ways because of this debris slide here. It also stranded 11 people and a dog on the other side who had to sleep in their cars overnight. Here's a look at the slide from up above. If you look closely, you can see one of at least 11 people that were stuck but safe on the other side.
At this time, we haven't even gotten crew members out on the material because it's still very much saturated and moving. Aaron Yanez with the Washington State Department of Transportation says the slide happened near milepost 49 just after 9 Sunday night. They believe one of the people stranded called in the slide after coming face to face with it on their drive back home from Mount St. Helens. We are very thankful that at the time nobody was reported missing or unaccounted for, so we didn't assume that anybody had been swept away. All 11 people were safe. They were picked up and flown out of the area by King County Search and Rescue Team. Something Yanez says could have been much worse in slightly different circumstances. Luckily last night was mild temperatures. Had it been in the wintertime or more snowfall, this could have been a different story.
Wow, that's incredible.
Duncan Foley is a professor of geology at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma. After showing him these pictures, he says the deep snow level followed by incredibly warm temperatures melted the snow really fast and provided weight and lubricant to the slopes.
I would have typically expected a fairly small slide coming down. This is much, much larger. And you can see it was very fluid and very liquidy. by the way the sediments almost look like waves in there.
Duncan adds the slides themselves aren't uncommon, but the size of this one during this time of year is what's eye-opening.
We do intend to try to move some of this water off the road to stop any undue damage to the surface. But other than that, we're working on coming up with a plan, working with geotechnical engineers that are on site today, as well as the rest of our staff.
Now, as of Monday night, there is no word on when State Route 504 will be cleared and reopened. Reporting from Mount St. Helens, Daisy Caballero, KGW News.
All right, check out this new video this evening of a Coast Guard helicopter rescue of a distressed swimmer off the Oregon coast. It happened yesterday off Indian Beach, just north of Cannon Beach. The Coast Guard says a rescue swimmer from the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection District swam out to assist the woman until more help was able to get there. The air crew hoisted both of them into the helicopter and took them to Ecola State Park in stable condition.
And that was just one of the rescues and sadly recoveries that the Coast Guard was across this weekend. They also spent the last couple of days searching for 18-year-old Jacob Stokes from Beaverton after he went swimming with friends on Friday. Joe Ranieri is in the newsroom. Joe, we also learned today Stokes was a senior. You saw it there at Mountainside High, about to graduate. I mean, just incredibly tragic here.
David, this is absolutely heartbreaking. Now, Mountainside High School has their graduation on June 9th, less than a month from now. Jacob Stokes, who was going to graduate, was already planning on attending Oregon State University in the fall. It was on Friday when he was swimming with 3 other friends when he got caught in a rip current and swept out into the ocean. And this was just one of several rescues crews were on over the past couple of days along the Oregon.
Many Mountainside High School students were just learning the sad news on Monday morning that their classmate Jacob Stokes had presumed drowned after swimming with friends over the weekend. He was with 3 other people swimming near Cannon Beach when they got caught up in a rip current.
We searched for over an hour for the other individual, and same as Coast Guard, we had 3 speeds in the water, 1 seaside, 1 Helens, and 1 Cannon Beach.
Despite searching for the last couple of days, his body hasn't been found. Lieutenant Shauna White with Cannon Beach Fire Department said 2 other students were able to get out on their own. Firefighters were able to rescue a third.
The water is extremely cold. People get tired. The best swimmers can get hypothermic even in a wetsuit.
White said it doesn't take much for conditions to change and at a moment's notice.
The conditions itself, the surf was extremely choppy. It was extremely big. While they were out there, it sounds like it was relatively okay. And then within like 20 minutes, the surf got really big for them.
Stokes was just weeks away from graduating from Mountainside and was planning on attending Oregon State University in the fall. I spoke with one classmate off camera who told me he was the sweetest kid. Mountainside Principal Todd Corsetti said Jacob was a kind and thoughtful young man. He pushed for excellence in all areas of his life. A school district spokesperson said there was extra staff at the high school to help students who were mourning the loss of a friend and classmate.
Lieutenant White also told me during our interview that they don't have lifeguards along the beach this time of year. She said there won't be any lifeguards along that part of the coast for another couple of weeks. In the newsroom, Joe Ranieri, KGW News.
Well, to a developing story now on the drug epidemic here in Portland. 8 people are dead from suspected overdoses across the city.
Now, all of these between Friday morning and Sunday afternoon, with investigators worried there is a particularly dangerous batch of drugs still circulating. Let's bring in Mike Benner. Mike, do we know how many of these are from fentanyl?
Yeah, David, fentanyl appears to have played a role in at least 6 of the 8 cases. Needless to say, this drug is taking too many lives, including the life of a 47-year-old man. He OD'd and died at Selwood Riverfront Park. Another man inside an apartment on Northwest Nadeau between the Broadway and Steel Bridges. A third person near Northwest 8th and Burnside. In all, 8 people overdosed and died in Portland between 11:30 Friday morning and 4:30 Sunday afternoon. Detectives say the victims believed they were ingesting cocaine, but in all likelihood, it was cocaine blended with fentanyl, or maybe even pure powdered fentanyl.
The loss of life is absolutely tragic for those individuals, their friends and families, and we feel really deeply about that. And then I'm very concerned as well regarding ongoing changes in the drug supply that we're seeing as evidenced by this type of epidemic of overdose and overdose death.
All right, that was Andy Mendenhall of Central City Concern. He went on to say that if someone makes the decision to ingest a drug, it is very important to use a fentanyl test strip to be sure that fentanyl is not in that drug. He says it's also very important to never use alone and always be sure that naloxone is close by. Naloxone, of course, is a medication that reverses overdoses. Let's send it back to you.
All right, Mike, thank you.